The absolute value is just a value minus the sign in front of a number. So it just takes away all negative signs, basically. If you have a number of positive 10, the absolute value is 10. If you have a number negative 10, the absolute number is also 10. So say we have these numbers here. Excel has a function, the ABS function, that will let you pull the absolute value. So we're going to insert a function. It's here, ABS. Double click. So what number do you want to use the value and take it without its sign? It would be cell A1. Click OK. And there it is. The absolute value of 33.4 is 33.4. We can copy it down. So I do say Control C, I do on here, and then paste it. And it's 22. So the absolute value of negative 22 is just a positive 22. And it also works if you want to type it in. So equals ABS. And you can put a cell reference in here, or you can actually type a number. Say you have negative 11. And parentheses, press OK. And the absolute value is just 11. And that's what the ABS function will do. The AND function is a logical function that only returns true or false. You set some criteria, and it checks all the criteria. And if all the criteria match, are all positive, are all true, then it will return a true value. If just one of them is false, then it will return a false value. So let's say we have this table here. We got a group of bowlers, and their scores through over 3 games that are all in here. And say we want to know, did they bowl at least a 200 in all the games? So since we want to find out in game 1 and game 2 and game 3, we want to use the AND function. So we can insert the function by click the FX there, and click OK. And now here's where we put all our logical tests. So the first test is cell B2 greater than 200? If you look right here, it already tells you it's false. Then is cell C2 greater than 200? And is cell D2 greater than 200? If you look here, all 3 are false, so it's going to return a false value. The only way for an AND statement to be true is all the results have to be true. So you click OK. So this comes up as a false. So we can copy this down. You can copy it just by dragging. Drag it down a few spots. And they're all false here. However, if you change a number, say now this becomes 210, all of a sudden this is now true, because look, it's Jack's pulled a 225, a 210, and a 253. All of those over 200, so it becomes a true. We can even just type this in if you don't want to use the wizard. So equals and parentheses, the first cell B5 is greater than 200. You have to separate all your criteria just by commas. So it's B5 greater than 100, C5 greater than 200, and D5 greater than 200. You click the end of parentheses to end the function, and here it is. It's going to check all 3 of these criteria. If all of them are true, it's going to come up with a true. Press enter. Since only one of them is true, it'll come up with a false. And that's just how you use the AND function. Excel lets you take the average of a group of numbers. So say we have this table here. We've got a list of all the students and a list of their grade. Here's the 4 grades. And we want to find out what's the average grade out of all 4 of these. So we got the average. We're going to insert the function here. You can click here. We'll scroll down. There's average. Click OK. And automatically Excel defaults B2 to B5 in here. It just reads this table and checks that these are numbers. So it puts B2 to B5. If this was not in there, you could just go in here and highlight it. B2 to B5, click OK, and your average is 83 for all these. In addition, instead of using the wizard, you can type it in. You put in equals, average, parentheses, and then you can put in a cell reference if you want. You can have, say, B2. Or you can actually type a number in there, 100, 55, 130. You put the end of parentheses, press OK, and now the average for those 4 numbers is 93.75. And that's how you can get the average for Excel. The choose function in Excel allows you to enter in a couple values, multiple values, and then you tell it which one of those that you want to choose, that you want to pick. So say we have a couple names that we want to choose from. So we're going to insert the function. I'm going to type in choose. There's choose. And so the index number is basically which value are you going to want to choose. You can type in a number or you can use a reference. For the first one, we're just going to use a reference. We'll say 2. And here are your choices. Say we got 3 different names. Joe for value 1, Jim value 2, Tim value 3. What the choose function will do is it's going to look at these values and it's going to pick one of these to return it based on what this index number is. So I'm just showing you as a 2, but normally this will be this index number here will be a reference that can change, so it'll change what value that you want. So we click OK, and the result is Jim, because if you look up here it says choose 2. 2 means the second value. If you had a 1, it would be Joe, 2 would be Jim, a 3 would be Tim. So say we had, let's use it as a reference. So we can insert the function, choose. But now say the index reference is just cell A2. Value 1 again is Joe, value 2 is Jim, value 3 is Tim. Click OK, and again it picks Jim because it says which one do you want to pick? Cell A2. It's a 2. So Joe is 1, Jim is 2. So it returns that. But now, if you could have made this into a question or pulling a number depending what you're looking for, and say this becomes a 1, press enter, and then this is interactive and it just becomes Joe. If this changes to a 3, then it becomes Tim. This is also good for using to nest with other functions. So if we just do a quick look at it, choose, if you wanted to just type it in, you can just type this in instead of going through the wizard. The first part is just the reference or the number, and then the next many parts that you want are just your choices. And if you have a name, it should be in quotes. Thanks. The concatenate function in Excel allows you to combine multiple cells into one larger cell. There's also a shortcut around it to not actually have to use it, but I'm going to show you first how to use the function, and then I'll show you the shortcut. So say we have these different numbers which represent, say, a phone number, and we want to combine it all into one cell, and we want to include dashes in there to make it look like a real phone number. So we're going to insert the function. I'm just going to go to all and search down because it's kind of a long one to spell. There it is, concatenate. Click OK. And here is just where you pick what text that you want in. So text 1 of this new cell is cell A2. The next text is just a dash. Text 3 is B2. Text 4 is another dash. And text 5 is C2. Whoops. Text 4 is a dash. Text 5 is cell C2. Now we click OK, and it'll give you the new phone number right there. You can also do by putting just the number in. You can say text 1 is 716. Text 2 is a dash. And then maybe text 3 might be the reference. Text 4 is another dash. Text 5 is here. So we click OK, and you just get the same result, except you just type the number in. But if you actually put something that's not a number, you have to put it in parentheses. So for the last one, I'll show you the shortcut. Instead of going into the functions and using this long name or typing it manually, typing in this word, you could just use the and sign, and that will do the same thing. So let's start off with the equals, insert the function, and now if we put the and sign, and then we put B4, then the and sign, and then C4, we press OK, and you got your new name. As you'll see, there's no spaces in there just because it's combining these actual words. If you want to put spaces in there, you can do that. You just need to insert it here. So if you look A4 and quote space quote, that'll just insert a space. Now you put another and then again B4 and say quote space quote, then another and. You have to put an and for each part that it's going to combine. Now if we press OK, now you've got the name John Dale Smith, and there's spaces after each one, because if you look, you put the spaces in there. So that's just a shortcut to avoid having to use the concatenate function. But I just wanted you to be aware that you can't easily combine different cells into one new cell. The count function in Excel will go through a list that you pick and count how many of them are either numbers or dates. It's not going to look at any words or anything like that. It just if there's a number or a date in there. So say we have this range of cells. We're going to insert the function here, and we need look for count. C-O-U-N-T. Here's count, and what's the value, which would be the range. So I'm going to delete what's there, and we want to look from A1 to A6. I want to check all these three, or all these values. We click OK, and the result is a 3. So if we look at it again, it's looking through all these in here. See, it's looking at Joe, 1, 2, 3, Excel. It's looking at all of this and says how many of these are numbers and how many are dates. Here's a number, here's a date, and here's a number. So there's 3 of them, and that's what it returns. If all of a sudden this became Excel, now it's down to 2 because there's only 1 date and 1 number. So that's just a simple count function just to count those, and that's all it'll do. The COUNTA function will count. You look it through your range of cells that you pick and count everything that's not blank. So say we have this list here, and say we want to just find out how many cells have something in them. So we can insert a function. It would be the COUNTA function. Double click. So what's the values or the range? I'm just going to highlight the whole column. So it's going to look all the way down. And how many of them are not blank? Click OK, and it's 4. So if you really look, that's all it is. I mean, you can also, if you had a second range, you can put in row B, click OK, and it's still 4 because there's nothing in there. But say something gets added. Something was added here, now it's 5. Again, it's 6. Something gets taken away. So it's very interactive, and it'll count how many are not blank. The COUNTBLANK function works pretty much as it's self-explanatory. It counts the blanks. It works the exact opposite of the COUNTA function. It's just you're gonna put in a range, and it'll tell you how many of in that range are blank. So say we have see this range here. We're going to insert the function count blank. There it is. So what's your range? So just say the range is from A1 to A10. And it's going to say how many of those blank. You can see right here in the wizard it says 5. Or you can click OK and it'll show 5. So how many of these from 10 are blank? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's something in these, and then 5. And if something gets deleted, now there's 6. If something gets added, goes back to 5. Then that's all the COUNTBLANK will do. Just count the blanks that you have. The COUNTIF function works pretty much, again, another self-explanatory one. It'll count how many values that match a certain function if it matches that function or matches that criteria. So say we have this range here. We got a list of students, and we got a list of their grades. And first we want to say how many scored over 65. So we basically want to count how many of these numbers are over 65. So we're going to insert the function here, and it's COUNTIF. And first, what's the range that you want to look in? So here's the range of what you're going to be checking, all of these numbers. And what's the criteria? It's just, is it greater than 65? Click OK, and it says 5. So we look at, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are greater than 65. And again, this is interactive, so if this becomes a 50, if it gets changed, now we're down to 4. And we can also just type it in if we wanted, instead of actually going through the wizard. So we could put insert COUNTIF parentheses. Now what's the range? So in this one we're going to say how many students are named Joe. So we're going to highlight all the list of student names, and then comma, and then basically just equals Joe. So we're going to put Joe in parentheses. Finish it off with the end parentheses there. Press enter, and there's 3. So we got 1, 2, 3 instances of Joe. If all of a sudden it becomes a 4th one, it gets typed in here. Now this becomes a 4. And if you look at the formula here, just count if for then the range you're checking and what the criteria is in quotes. The COUNTIFS function works very similar to the COUNTIF, except it looks up multiple criteria instead of just the one range. So say we've got this table here. We got a list of students. We got what class they're taking and their grade. And say we want to know how many of these students are named Joe and also take math. So to do that, we would use the COUNTIFS function. So we're going to insert the function. Right here is COUNTIFS. And here we're going to enter what's your criteria range. So the range 1 is we're going to look at these names and as a name Joe. Criteria 2 is going to look at all these classes and is the class named math. We can click OK, and the result is a 2. So what it's doing, it's finding all the Joes here. I'm going to highlight them. Here's a Joe, Joe, Joe. So if we just look for Joe, 3 of them would come up. But now it's also looking up in the second criteria, and both ranges have to be the same. So like in here, it's from row 2 to 10, and here it's also from row 2 to 10. So Excel can match up and look right next to it. So here, Joe Science, nope, we don't want to count that one. Here's a Joe Math, yes, we want that one. Here's another Joe Math. So we've got 2. If this became a math also, then it becomes a 3. And if you just look, and if you wanted to type it instead, it's just equals COUNTIFS parentheses, and then the first range with a comma, and then what's the criteria. Then the second range with the comma, and then the second criteria. We can put in a third range if there was, maybe like you want score less than 70. Then it would look at this number also and make that 3 different criteria to look at to find your result. And that's it for the COUNTIFS function. Thanks. The exact function will tell you if 2 strings are exactly alike or not. All it's going to do is return a true or false value. So say we have this table here. We've got a couple columns of data, and say we want to see if like cell A1 equals B1 or so on. We're going to go to C1. We're going to insert the function. So we're going to click that insert function here. We're going to go to, let's see, if most recently used is it's the last one. So double click on that. So now the text is going to be A1 and B1. All we're doing is selecting 2 different cells. We'll click OK, and it's true. We can copy this down, and the other ones are false. See, this one, Joe equals Joe, and here 123.4 doesn't equal 123, so it'll also check numbers, and so, since they don't equal, it's a false. And the same goes for here. These are both words Excel, but this is capitalized, the first E, so it also checks the punctuation and spaces and everything else in there, so it's false. If you look up here, you can see how the formula is written out. Exact, and then it's just the two different cells that it's checking on. We can, instead of putting a cell, you can actually type something in. So say if we wanted to type in the word Excel, we want to see, does A3 match to the word Excel? Now we click OK, and that equals true. So in here, it's looking A3, which is this Excel capitalized. It's matching it to Excel here, which is also capitalized, and they match. So that is the exact function for you. The find function will search a string and look for whatever item, either one letter or a string within that string, and then return back the starting point of that. So the best point is really to show you an example. Say we have this this term here. It says Excel by Joe 1. Say we're looking up the word by, by. What Excel is going to do is going to look in this string, see is the word by in here, and if it is, it's going to tell you its starting point. So we're going to insert the function, go down to find, and find text. What do we want to find? So we're going to put the word by within with what text? Within here. And we can just leave this starting number blank. Click OK, and it will show a 7. So what this does, it looks for the word by in Excel. So like it starts at the left, goes to the left. Oh, there's the word by. And then what it's going to do is return this where it starts, which is a 7. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the word by starts on the 7th character, basically. So it's going to return a 7. So now, let's say if we wanted to just find one letter, say the letter E. So we're going to do most recently used to find. Now we want to find the letter E within what cell? Within right here, within B2, or A2, sorry. And it comes up with 4. So what it's going to do, it's just like the last time. It starts at the left. It's case sensitive, so it's looking for the small e. It passes by this first big E. It goes down 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the first small e. If you notice, there's also another E right here, but since it starts at the left and looks for the first one, it's just going to give you the first instance, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to return a 4. Now let's say if we're looking up something that's not in there. Say we happen to be looking up the number 6 or something like that. We're going to do find. See what text do we want to find in here. Or even we can put, say, the word Joe, but it's not capitalized. And it's within here. We'll click OK, and it's show value. So that's the error it's going to show. Because what it's doing, it's looking for the word Joe, but with a small j. It's going to go through here. There is the word Joe, but it's with a capital J. So that it's not going to find it. It goes through, doesn't find it, so it gives you the pound value error. And those are 3 examples to kind of summarize what the find function will do. The fixed function will adjust any number you have to a fixed number of decimal places that you want. Say, for example, we have this number here, 14914.2158. So there's 4 numbers after the decimal place. Say we only have 2. You can use the fixed function, and it'll round it to 2 decimal places and cut off all the rest. So let's insert the function. It's right here with a fixed function. And what number is this? How many decimal places? We say 2. And no commas. It's going to default it to false. It's going to default it to have a comma in there. If you don't want to have a comma in the number, then you would put true in here. But we're just going to leave it blank. There. So we got 14914.22. And if you look up at the typed out function right here, it's fixed, parentheses A2, which is the cell, and we want it to 2 decimal places. Now say we want to do to 0 decimal places. So we can even just type it in without the wizard. Fixed, parentheses, this number, comma, 0. We press OK, and we've got it right there. Say we're going to type it in again, but instead of doing a reference like here, like A4, we can just type a number right in. So 123.56. And we want to say we want to round that to 1 decimal place. We can just type it right in, 123.6, instead of doing a reference. So it'll work either way. And then let me just show you with the true and false. So say we have this number, we want to do it to 2 decimal places, and no commas. If we put false, it's basically saying that there will be a comma. You click OK. But now if we go here, if we don't want to have a comma in there, you just do A6. We want to say 2 decimal places. We'll put true, and then it's basically true. There's no commas. We'll click OK, and there's no commas. So that's what the fix function will do. The HLOOKUP function will work similar to the Vlookup function. What it's going to do, it's a horizontal lookup. If you have a table like this, instead of the Vlookup where you're looking up and down, the horizontal lookup would mean that you're just looking from left to right. It's going across, and you can pull information from it depending on what you're looking for. So say we have this example here. We got all these different classes, and here's the different students that are in the class and their scores. Got the scores going across here. And say you want to find Joe's English score. To do that, we can use an HLOOKUP, because we want to find Joe. So we're going to be looking up in this top row here for the word Joe, and then we're going to go down and pull the English score. So we're going to insert a function. There's the HLOOKUP. So what's the lookup value? We want to look up Joe. So we can either type it in, or we can use the reference of B1, which would equal to Joe. But since we're not going to be copying, you usually will use a reference if you're going to be copying this down and you want to find other scores. But if we're just looking up 1, I'll just type in Joe. So that's what we're going to look for. The table array, we want to highlight the whole table. I mean, you could use a named range if this was named, you could do that. You want to make sure that the top row contains the information that you're looking for. So in this case, Joe or the student names. So you want the top row, which is row 1, to contain that. The row index is which row do we want to pull. So since we're in A is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and we want to look up the English score based on what they're asking for. So we want to pull 1, 2, 3. We want to pull the 3rd row. Press a 3, and the range lookup. This is true or false. You put false if you want an exact match. So I'm just going to put false. If you pick true, then it's going to look for the exact match. If it doesn't find it, it's going to pull in the next closest. But we want to find exactly Joe, the word Joe in here. So we're going to use false for an exact match. I'm going to click OK. There, and we get 57. So let's look at what this formula does here. With HLOOKUP, it's looking up. The first part is Joe. So if you're just typing it in, you can type in Joe. In A1 to E5, so it's this whole range, this whole table here. Column 3. So what it's going to do, it's going to start in row 1. It's going to say, okay, where's Joe? It starts from the left. No, there it is. And now we're going to the 3rd row. So here's row 1. Here's row 2, here's row 3. If we put a 2, it would pull the math score of 62. So it pulls the 57. And false just means it's looking up, when it's going across here, it's looking exactly for the word Joe. It's not gonna look up anything close to it. Once it finds the first one, there could be multiple instances of Joe. It'll find the first one, and then it goes down and finds the 57, and it pulls it in. So that's how the HLOOKUP works. The if function is a logical function. That just means it's going to return a true or false value. What it's going to do, you're going to put in a criteria like is one bigger than the other, and then it's going to give. Then you get to put in a true result. If it is, then you give this result. If it's not, then you give another result. So we'll go through a simple example here. See, we got a couple students here. We got math scores in English scores. And say we want to find out for each student which score is higher, the math score or the English score. So we're going to insert, we'll do the if function. There's if, click OK. And what's the test? You always have to put a test in here. And the test will be, is this cell greater than this cell? So really, is math greater than English? So if it's true, you can put anything you want. If you want a number to come up, say if you want the number 10 to come up, you can do that. If you want words to come up, you could put, say, math is greater. And false, say if math score isn't higher than English, then we could put English is greater. We click OK. There. And see what the function will do. It'll look at this. B2 greater than C2. Is it? Yes, it is. So here's your true. And then here's your false. So it puts math is greater. Now we can just simply copy this down just by dragging it here. And if we look at it, it'll show, and for Sam's score, English is greater. So that's what it comes up. And here 90 is greater than 64. So is B4 greater than C4? Yes, it is. So it gives you the true. So if you're typing it out, you can just type it out like this instead of going through the wizard, and you'll get the same result. And the great thing about if statements, you can nest if statements. So I'm not going to get into showing how to do that because that's a little more advanced. But you can do, say, if B4 is greater than C4, and then instead of putting, like, say, a number in here for what you want as the true result, or a word like math is greater, you can put another function right in here. So instead of that, you could put another if statement. You could put another function. So if you wanted, we could put if parentheses, say, A1 equals Joe. And then you can put another true, false, or however you want to do it. And this gets a little more advanced, so I'm not going to really get into the results here. But I just wanted to show you that you can simply do so I'm going to just get out of here. This is just a simple if statement, but you can really get advanced into it to really blow up your spreadsheets. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go over the IFERROR function. The IFERROR function is two functions again. It's combined. It's really checking if there's an error in a cell, and if there is, it's going to perform a different function, or either a different function, or you can tell it to type in whatever you want. A blank word, an actual phrase, or if it doesn't, then it'll give you the actual function that you want. So let's say we have these students here. We have the students with their grades, and we're doing a Vlookup. And let's say we do a normal Vlookup, which is, say we're looking up Barry and what table, what column. We want the third column. We put false. Click OK. So Barry's grade is 93. And there's some errors that like Jill is not found in here, so there's an error. So we want to get rid of this. So instead of doing the Vlookup function, we'll do the IFERROR function. What that's going to do, here is what the actual function is that you want. So if we're doing a Vlookup, we would do the Vlookup function here. So we would type in our Vlookup, or you could have done copy and paste. So we're going to Vlookup Barry in here, third column, just like we did just a second ago. Here's the Vlookup. It's false, so it's 93. Value of error, if there was an error, what would we want it to say? Now we just say this pound NA, as you see here, but we don't want that. So we can just say either, do we want it just to say blank, or do we want it to say something like, well, I'll put the word missing. Say we want it to say missing, like that, so we know that Jill is missing from all this list of students. We click OK. We copy this down, and now you see if there's an error, it performs the second function, the second expression, basically. If there isn't an error, it does the initial one, which is the VLOOKUP, which we wanted. So here, there's no error in these two because Barry and Joe are found in there. So it just does the normal VLOOKUP that we were looking for. Jill's not found in there, so we have the word missing. If we didn't want missing, I mean, a lot of times I would just want to leave it blank, click OK, and it just stays blank. So the if error is a good way to get rid of error messages that come up. And for more than just VLOOKUP, it could be in other different functions where you have errors that'll come up. If error is great for getting rid of those.
The index function, it's used to pull a number or numbers from a certain array. So say we have this array of numbers here. We've got all these numbers, and the index function can be used to pull one certain number, or say like a whole row of numbers. So let's go through an example to better show you how this works. So let's find index here. We get the index function. We'll just click the array for row numbers and column numbers. So first we got to put in what's the array. Array is just basically your whole table. And then you just get to pick what row number and what column number is the cell that you want to pull. So when you're just doing a simple index, you're only going to be pulling one cell. So what row number do you want to pull? Say we want to pull this third row, so we put a 3. And what column do we want to pull? If we want to pull from this column B, you put a 2. So it's the second column. We click OK. And then we got a 3 here. Because what it does, it looks in this table, and what's the third row in this table? So it's 1, 2, 3. And then what's the second column in the table? So it goes to this column B, and it pulls the 3. If this became a 1, and then it's going to pull 6, because it looks at this third row here, and it's column 1, so then it'll pull the 6. But that's just for pulling one specific number out of an array. If you want to pull, say, a range and say maybe to sum them up, you can do that through the same type of function, but we have to kind of nest the function. So we're going to put sum. The sum function just adds everything up, and we use index parentheses. What's the table that we want to do? So the first part is the array, so it's here, comma, say we want the third row, so we're going to put a 3. Let's say we want to pull, if you want to pull all the numbers in this row, then you put a 0, and then the 0 is going to pull everything. So what it's going to do, it's going to sum everything in this row. So we've got our index function right here, and then we can put another parentheses to finish off the sum function. We'll press OK, and it becomes a 9. Because what it's doing, it's looking at this table, and it's doing the third row, and it's doing everything in the third row because we put 0. Say if we change this up a little bit, and say we want everything from here, and we want, say, in column 2. So that means it's going to be all the rows. By putting a 0, you don't specify which row, so it means all the rows. But we are specifying the column, so the column would be 2. So it's going to add up to 10 plus 4 plus 3 plus 8. We press OK, and it's 25. It just added all these up. And so that's just a way, when you have a larger table, to pull in certain a number or certain numbers. I mean, besides some, you can use, there's other functions. I mean, you can use the average function or whatever, the max function, whatever you needed. But the index function will pull just one certain item from the array. The ISBLANK function, it's really like an error checking function. And it pretty much does what the name says, is blank. Is the cell blank? And then it's just going to return a logical, it's going to return, if it is blank, it's going to return a true. If it's not blank, it's going to return a false. And then this can be used in more advanced type of functions. If, like, maybe with an if statement to find out if something is blank, then do this or do that. But we're just going to go over the if is blank function here. So we're going to say we've got all these different terms here, and we want to find out, are these blank? So we're going to find is blank. There's is blank. Click OK. And it's just what value? Cell A2. Click OK. It's false. So that means there's something in there. We can copy this down, and we'll see false because there's something in here. And this is true because it is blank. And this is false. So it's very self-explanatory and simple function, but it can be used in many powerful nested functions once you figure out if something is blank or not. All right, now we're going to go over the ISERROR function. ISERROR is another logical function. It checks a cell, and if it's an error, it returns a true, and if it's not, it returns a false. So say we've got these different results from certain formulas we did. We're going to insert a function. Let's see, most recently used is error. What's the value? A2. It's going to check A2 if it's an error. It's not, so it returns false. And you can copy this down. See, is error A3. It's just it's the word Joe. It's not an error. But what it's doing, it's just going through checking for the error messages that you get from Excel when you have sometimes when you have problems with a different function, you'll get an error message. We might want to know if it's true or false. So what you can do, I mean, this is just a simple returns true or false, but you can make a more advanced function out of this. So I'm going to put this into an if statement. If you haven't seen if statements, go through the basic if statement example. But let's see. Say we have the if statement. Say we have all these cells. And if we get an error, say we just don't want to show it. We don't want to have a spreadsheet that has pound NA on it or pound REF. We say we want it just to be blank. So we're going to do a nested function here. So we're going to do if, and then we're going to put the is error, parentheses, this cell equals true. So what Excel is going to do is saying if A2, it's going to look at A2 is error, if that equals true. So if this is an error, and then what do we want to put? We don't want to put anything, because if it's an error, we don't want to see the error. So we just put quote, quote. That just means it's going to give you a blank. And if it's not an error, then we want to see what's in A2. So we just put A2 and the parentheses, we'll click OK. So now we got Excel. Because what it's doing, it's checking, is error A2 equal to true? If you look, see, it really is equal to false. So it's going to give you the false result, which is A2. If we copy this all the way down, there, see, all the ones where there actually was an error, where it equals to true, it's going to do the true part, which is blank. So that's shows you the power of the is error to give you blanks if you don't want to see the error messages. Okay, now is the ISNA function. ISNA is another error checking function that it's really going to check and give you a true or false. You're going to pick a cell and it's going to look, is there an NA error in there? If it is, they're going to return a true. If it's not, it's going to return a false. So say we have all these results of our table. We're going to insert ISNA. So let's go to all. Let's find it here. Is error. There we go. Is NA. Click OK. Now, what cell do we want to check? We're going to check A2. Returns a false, because is A2 pound NA error result? Nope, it's not. So it returns a false. And then you copy this down, false, and there's a true, because it sees, oh, there's an NA, so it returns a true. Now you can utilize this function more in an if statement if you want to perform something like, say you don't want to see the NA say you have all these results and you just want to see it blank, you can do an if function. And the if function will be is NA parentheses A2 equal to true. So what it's going to do, it's going to check, is this cell equal to true? If you're already seeing B2, we check that it's false. It's not. But if it is equal to true, that means there's an NA error and we don't want to see it. So we can put double quotes. A double quotes just means it's going to return a blank. And if we don't, if it ends up being false, then we'll put A2 because we do want to see that result because it's not an error. We end parentheses to finish off the statement. We click OK. And we've got Excel. Now if we copy this down, here we've got Joe. But see, this is a blank because this is the only true. It's seeing, is there an NA error? There is. So it's going to return this part here, which is blank. So now we've got our result. So this looks better if you're sending out a report. So you don't have to show all the NAs. You can just show it with the blank. Alright, now we will go over the large function. The large function lets you pick a range and then you get to pick which largest value you wanna pull in. So I mean, if you've seen the max function, the max pulls in the largest value. Let's say you want to find what's the third largest value in a range. The large function will let you do that. So say we've got all these students here. Here's their test scores. It comes up here. Say we want to find out what's the third largest test score grade. So we can insert the large function. There it is, large. Double click. First it says, what's the array? The array is just the range of scores, which would be this. And what position from the largest of the array do you want to return? So in this case, we want the third. So we press 3, and we want the third largest score. So it's going to return an 83. So if we look up this whole range, what's the highest score? The highest score is a 98. We go through again. Here's a 90. That's the second highest. And then if we look, 83 is the third highest, and that's what it returns. If you see, you can read the function if we just typed it in. It's large, parentheses, your range, B2 to B11, comma, and then what score? We want the third largest. Say if we want the second largest, remember we said it was 98, then 90, so if we put a 2, here's we got a 90. See if we do this again, it'll work the exact same way. Highlight the scores and say if we want the whatever, even if we want the largest one, instead of using the max, you can just use this, which is the number 1, and it's 98. 98 is the number 1, is the largest score. In addition to numbers, it'll also work on dates. So we have all these dates here. If we want to insert, say, what's the third largest date, we can pick this range of dates and we pick a 3, click OK, and it shows October 3rd. So if we look, what's the highest date? We got an October 10th here, which is so this is the largest. Then there's an October 7th. These are all September and August dates here. And then the third largest would be October 3rd. So if we change this to 2, the second largest date would be October 7. So just to show you, change that to a 2, and we got October 7. So that's what the large function will do. Okay, on to the left function. Left function is a text manipulation function. I really like using these because you can take a cell or a number and pull a certain portion of that cell out of it. So like with the left function, you can take a word or like a phrase like this and pull however many leftmost characters you want. So say we want just the leftmost 3 characters, the left function will let you do that. So we're going to insert a function, left, and this is very simple. You just put what text you want to extract and then how many characters from that text you want to pull. Say we want the 3 leftmost characters, and if you look, EXC is going to be your result. You click OK, it's EXC. We can copy this down And see here, it'll pull numbers or letters. And this one, it pulls the 3 leftmost characters on this cell, so it's 515. Here, it'll pull 243. You can even do, say, like here, left A3, which is a cell, and we have 3 characters. But say we want 5 characters. It'll pull spaces, it'll pull letters, it'll pull whatever you need. So here it's pulling the 5 leftmost characters of this cell, which is 515 space M, which is the part of the address. I mean, this is good for, say you even have like, say a phone number. And say we just want to pull the area codes. The left function is perfect for that, because you can do insert a function. What's this text? This cell, and area code is 3. So we press a 3, and there, and we get the area code from a phone number, and just by using the left function. Okay, now to the LEN function. The LEN function is just short for length. It will tell you the length of any cell that you want, how many characters are in that cell. It's very simple. Say we have, say, how long is this phrase? Or here's this number. How many characters are in this word? So we're going to insert the function, LEN. There it is. And what text or cell do you want to find? Click this text, click OK, and at 24. So if you count it up, like how many letters and spaces are in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we go all the way to the end, including punctuation, it'll come out to 24. Say if we added XXX at the very end to this will change to 27, because now all of a sudden there's 3 more characters. We copy this down. There's 6 characters in this. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It counts it right out. If this became 200, now there's 3. There's 3 characters. 1, 2, 3. And you could, instead of going to the wizard, you could just type it out. LEN parentheses A3. Click OK. And all it's going to do is going to look at this cell. It's going to count everything that's in there, including spaces, punctuation, whatever, and give you the result of how many characters it is. The lower function. That's a very simple text function, which is just going to take any string or any cells and just make all the letters lowercase. I mean, no matter if they were already lowercase, if you had capitals, it just put all the letters lowercase, and it's not going to affect numbers. So say we have this address here, 244 West Tupper Boulevard. So we've got a couple capitalization at the beginning of the words, and here we got BLVD, all capitalized. But say you, for some reason, you need all of them in small and lowercase letters. I'm going to insert the function lower. And what's the text? This. Click OK. And now, if you look at it, it still has the same words, West Tupper Boulevard, but everything is lowercase. There's no more capitalized, but the numbers remain the same, decimal points remain the same, and this will work for everything. If you have the word Joe in there, we can do equals lower parentheses, what cell? This. Click OK. And now this JOE capitalized just became JOE small letters. So that's all the lower function will do. Just a nice simple text function to give you the lowercase for everything.
Okay, we're going to go over the match function. The match function is used to find a term like in a row or in an array and return its relative position within that array. So say we've got all these different terms here, mostly numbers, but there's some words. And we want to use the match function to find certain items in there. So like here, we're going to look up the number 24. Where does the 24 show up in here? So we're going to insert the function, match. And the lookup value. We can either do a reference, like you can do here, or you can just type it right in. The lookup array is the range that we're looking in. In match type, you get 3 choices here, either 1, 0, or -1. 0 is if you want an exact match. So this is what you would use in most cases. If you use a 1, it's going to show the number which is greater, which is the largest number, as long as it's not greater than it. So like if you're looking up 100, it's going to check for 99, 98, and so on. And -1 just works the opposite. It's going to give you the smallest number that is larger than the number you specify. I'll go over an example of that in a minute, but for this example, we're just going to use 0 because we want an exact match. So where in this row is number 24? Click OK, and it shows a 3. So it means 1, 2, 3. It's the third position. Now say we want to find any word that, say like J with the asterisk, so any word that begins with a J in here. You could do that too, or you can just use the word Joe, and it'll do the same thing. But say the lookup value is J asterisk. Lookup array is the same range, and match type is 0. Click OK. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth term. And so you got J asterisk. You can change that if you want to put Joe, if you want to exactly define the word Joe, and it's going to show a 4 also. And if you notice, it's not case sensitive. I mean, this is small letters, J-O-E. Yet over here, this is capitalized, so that doesn't matter. Now say we want to find not an exact match, but the greatest number that's less than 90. So when you do match, so the lookup value, say we'll do the reference. Lookup array is still here, and the match type, we're going to use a 1. Click OK. So it comes up to a 7. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 88. 88 is the largest number in this range that is not over 90. And it also can give you an error message. Say if we use match, we're looking up 90 in this array, but say we want an exact match. So we're putting a 0 in there. We're going to click OK, and it's going to give you an NA error. So that just means that it's not finding it in here. And that's what the match function will do. On its own, it's good. I mean, it'll tell you where it is, but it's best when you combine them with other functions, which we'll go over in more advanced classes. But you could look up the index match, where match is nested inside an index function, which is kind of a replacement for the VLOOKUP. Or an offset match, which is another nested function, which will can give you a range of cells, but it's more advanced because you can kind of maneuver it, make it more versatile that you need. But on its own, the match function, what it's going to do is just give you the relative position of a number or a word within a range.
The max function will give you the largest value in a range of either numbers or of dates. So we have this example here. We have these test scores. And see, we want to find the max value. We can insert the function max. There it is. We'll double click on it. Now you can put a range in, or just put numbers in there. So we're just going to put this range. Click OK, and it comes out with 98. So if you look down here, the largest number is 98. So that's right. It'll also give you the largest date. So if we're going to insert the function max, we're going to put this range in here, and we'll click OK, and we have October 6th. So if we look, which is the largest date, these are all April, September, and October 6th is the largest date. You could also do multiple ranges, and it doesn't always have to be just of ranges. You can put the number in there. So say we can just type it in, max, and then you just separate the ranges by commas. So you're going to highlight this range, comma, 100. So now it's going to look in this range from D2 to D11 and also put 100. And 100 is the largest, because it's going to look through here and say, which is the largest, anything in here or 100? Say if this was really 80, click OK. Now the max would be 98, because it's going to look at this 80 and also look at every number in here, and the largest number is 98. And the same thing will go for here. If we put max in here, sorry, we can put this whole range. You can put a second range if you want. You can even put a third, a number, 102, click OK. and it looked through all of these, it looks through all of these, and it looks at 102, and 102 is the largest. So that's what the max function will do. The mid function will allow you to pull some text out of a cell that's in the middle of the cell. So say we have these examples here. We got Excel by Joe, and we got a phone number here. Say we want to pull out, say, this word by, which is right in the middle. You could do the mid function, and that will pull that out for you. So we're going to type it in mid, search for it. There it is. And what text do you want to pull from? That's the first part of the argument. You click this. What's your starting number? What this is going to do, it's going to tell you where Excel will start pulling this cell from. So in here we're going to count just the characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then a space counts as one at 6. And then by starts on the 7th character. So we'll put a 7. And then number of characters. How many characters do you want to pull? So we're just gonna, we want the word by, by, that's just 2 characters. We put a 2, we click OK, and there we go. It's by. Same thing will work with a phone number. Say if we want to pull this middle 3 digits. We can insert a function, mid, and then this is the text. The starting number is 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th cell, or 5th character. And we want to pull 3 characters. And we click OK, and it's 555. If we just actually look at what it is, see it'll say mid, and then all the arguments are just separated by commas. So A3, which is this, the 5th character, which is this first 5, and we want to pull 3 characters. So it's going to pull 555. And that's what the mid function will do. The min function will give you the smallest value in any range. It's either a range of numbers or a range of dates. It works the exact opposite of the max function if you saw that video. So say we have all these test scores, and we're going to say what's the smallest test score without going through them one by one. So we're going to insert a function. We're going to look for the min function, min. Click OK. There it is. And now here's just where you put your range of numbers. So we're going to use just one range in this example. Here's all the list of numbers. We click OK, and it's 56. And if you go through all these, you'll see that 56 is the lowest number. So that's why it returns a 56. It also works for dates. So say we have all these dates, I'm like, what's the smallest date? And insert the min function. We highlight all these dates. We'll click OK. And it's April 4th, which if you look at these, here's October, September, more September. Here's only April, so that's the smallest date. So it's April 4th. And you could also have more than one group of numbers. So say we're gonna just type it in, insert min. So we have this range of numbers here. But you can also have either a second range of numbers if you want. You can put this. And you can even have, you can just type in a number. Say we want the number 50. End the parentheses, click OK. And 50 is the lowest. So what this formula does, if you look at it, it looks from D2 to D11, looks through all these numbers. Then it looks from B2 to B12, all these numbers. And it also looks at 50. And 50 is the lowest out of any of these numbers, so it puts that as the min. If this happened to be, say, 58, now 56 is the lowest. Because if it looks through all these, there's a 56, and that's the smallest number. So that's how the min function will work. Alright, now we are going to look at the now function. The now function is very simple. It's just going to tell you the date and time right now. You don't even have to use the wizard for this. So all you're going to do is go into the cell where you want the date and time, click equals, now, double parentheses, and press OK. And there you go. You've got your date and you got your time. And if you don't even like how it looks, you can format the cell. Right now it's set up as custom to look like this. You can change it to a date if you want just to have the date on there. However you want it to look. Here's a different way. Date and the time. Click OK. And it's just going to format it to however you want. And that's all it does. It just puts in the time and the date for right now. Okay, we're going over the offset function here. The offset function is a function to use to
pretty much pull in another range. It's very versatile. You can adjust how big of a range you want to pull in. You can just pull in one cell if you want. You can also move it around to wherever you need. It's kind of hard to explain without seeing a couple examples. So let's go over these examples here. Say you have this couple names here. You get some like payroll data. These are how many hours these people worked. Like here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Here's their hours worked. Say you want Jeff's Monday hours. I mean, there's different ways to do this. I mean, you can use a VLOOKUP to get this also, but we use the offset function to show you just a simple example of how this works. So we get offset. The reference is where do we want to start? This is like your home base kind of. And say we're going to start right here, A3 with names. Now this is where do you want to move to? How many rows down or up do you want to move? If you press a 2, that means it's going to move down to the word Jeff. If you did a -2, I mean it's going to move up to, and so on. And columns is how many columns over do you want to do? So say we've got we were here. We want to move over one column to Monday. We'll press 1. If you did 2, it would move over to 2 spaces to Tuesday. And then these height and width are not mandatory. This is how big of an array do you want to pull in. So if you're just pulling in one cell, say here we just want this Monday hours, we don't have to put these in because it's going to default to 1 and 1, which means 1 column high, 1 row wide. So we're just going to click OK, and it's an 8. So just Monday hours, if you go down here, Monday, 8 hours. But let's say if we want to do the weekly hours, we can get an array and sum up that array with the sum function. So let's do that. So if we do insert sum, and we're just going to type it in. So instead of saying sum this row, we're going to do our offset function. And remember, we start off with names. Now, how many rows down do we want to move? We want to move down 2 rows. So, see, here's the rows. You can kind of see here's like the little help section right here. So now we're going to do comma, and now it's highlighted, or it's bolded, it says columns. So how many columns over do we want to move? So we want to move over 1 column. So now we're at this cell right here, B5. This is like the starting point of our new range. How high do you want this new array to be? Since we just want the row Jeff, we just want it 1 column high. We click comma, and how wide do you want it to be? We're starting here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got all 4 of these dates in there, so we're going to put a 4. So end of parentheses, click OK. And it gives us 24. It's just that little error message that popped up just because I needed to have double parentheses in here, which I didn't do because there's 2 different functions going on. I had to close off the offset function and close off the sum function. So that's if you saw that little error message that popped up, that's what it was. It was nothing big because Excel just reads it and puts the parentheses in there for you. So if you look at this, see it's summing what range? This range, which is starting here, moves down 2 over 1, and then it's 1 high, 4 wide. So this is the range. It's just summing up these. If you 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 0 gives you 24. So the offset function is another one that's on its own is just okay, but it's great for nesting it within other functions, like within sum. Like you could sum up different rows. It's also great for using it with the match function, where the match will look for something, and you insert it in here, and it will give you a more advanced function to find more volatile type of of range that you might be looking for. But just on its own, that's what offset will do. Thanks.
All right, we are looking at the OR function right now. The OR function is just a logical function that's going to look at different criteria you set. You can set multiple criteria, and it'll give a true or false value. It'll look at each criteria, and as long as one of those criteria is true, then it's going to give you a true value for the whole statement. Because it's an OR statement, so it's just looking if one or the other is true, then it comes back as true. So let's look at this example here. We've got all these people here, bowling scores, game 1, game 2, game 3. And we want to know, did any of them score over 200 in any game? So we can do an OR statement, because we just want to see, is game 1 over 200, or game 2 over 200, or game 3 over 200? So we're just going to insert the function, put the OR function, and here's their logical test. Test 1, is this greater than 200? Test 2, is this greater than 200? And test 3, is this score greater than 200? Now we're going to click OK, and it's false, because none of these scores were actually true. Let's go do this again, but we can just type it in. Instead of going through the whole wizard, you can type OR. Now you can just put each criteria and separate them by commas. Is this greater than 200? Comma. Is this cell greater than 200? And you can see how Excel kind of highlights the numbers, so you can kind of keep track of what you've already done. And is D3 greater than 200? Click OK, and it's true, because one of them is, this number is greater than 200. And then we can copy this down. To copy, you can just go to this bottom right corner, drag it down, and look, these both come up as true, because each one, this has 3 scores over 200, but all it needs is 1 for a true value to come out. And the same with this. We got 3 scores, but this one is over 200, so it comes out as true. So that's what the OR statement will do. Okay, let's look at the product function right now. Product is just the result of multiplication. So if you can multiply 2 numbers, 3 numbers, the product is just your answer. But it's also a function which we can use. Instead of going through and putting like the multiplication sign, you could just put the product function and it'll do the same thing. So we're going to insert function, product, and we can put in a reference in here, or we can put the whole range. Like here, we've already got range A1 to C1. Comes up as 60. We click, because we click OK. What it's doing, it's taking all these numbers and just multiplying them together. 3 times 4 equals 12. Then 12 times 5 equals 60. You can also do, say if you wanted one reference, say this cell A1, which is a 3, and you could just type a number right in, say 7. Click OK, and the result is 21. So if we're just looking at the function, it's product, and then it's just all the numbers that you want multiplied by each other. So it's A1, which is a 3, and then 20 times 7, which would equal 21. You could put another range just by going comma, go to B1, press OK, and now we had 84. So we had 21 before that, which is 3 times 7, then we multiply it by 4, and we get 84. So that's just a simple way to do the multiplication. Instead, you could still get the result the same way by just going equals this times B1 times C1, and it'll still give you 60. It's the same result, but this is just a little easier way of doing it when you have a large number of numbers that you want multiplied together. Instead of putting the multiplication sign each time, you could just put the range and it'll multiply it for you. Okay, now we are looking at the proper function. Proper. What this is going to do, this is a nice text function, because all it's going to do is, sometimes if you're typing words, you're doing real fast, it'll come out like this. And you might want the proper way of doing it is to have the first letter in each word capitalized and all the rest is small. So you can use the proper function to get it that way if that's what you're looking for. So say we have this here, my name is Joe, but everything's in small letters. We can insert the proper function. We can go through the wizard. Proper, search for it. There it is. And it's just what text do you want. You're going to pick this text, click OK, and there you go. It says my name is Joe, but the first letter in each word is capitalized. And it even works the reverse. If say you have most of the letters capitalized, you can just type it in, equals proper. What do you want? SLA3, click OK, and it's my name is Joe. It comes up the same result because it's the same words, just here they're capitalized. And all proper is going to do is just put it in the way where the first letter is capitalized and everything else isn't. Okay, we are onto the RAND function now. The RAND function is just, it'll give you a random number between 0 and 1, and that's all it's going to do. Then you can still use it, you can multiply by it, add stuff to it, use it to sort numbers, but the RAND function is great just for getting that random number. So say we just, all you have to do, you don't even have to use the wizard again on this one either, because there's no operators or anything with it. You just type rand, double parentheses, click OK, there, and you've got some number between 0 and 1. And if you want to press, you can press any number. I press say delete, and it's going to keep reissuing a random number. So then you can save, even if you have a couple, you can drag it down. And this is a great way I do to randomly sort items. Say we have all these numbers, say you have A, B, C, D, and E. This is a great use for it, because now you can press delete, and then if you want to sort, you can just highlight these, go data, sort, and if you're just going to sort by say column A, you have your random number here, click OK, there, and it just did a random sort for you, and that's just a perfect use for the RAND function. And you can even multiply by it. Say you want plus this times 10. Now see, here's the random function, 0.15 multiplied by 10, and it's 1.5. So that's the great uses for the RAND function. Thanks. Okay, now we're looking at the RANDBETWEEN function. This is one of my favorite functions because you can pick what random number that you wanted to give you, and it works differently than just the RAND function, because the RAND function will always just give you a random number between 0 and 1. RANDBETWEEN lets you pick your range. So depending what you're looking for, RANDBETWEEN will let you pick what two numbers you want as the minimum and maximum from your range. So let's do an example here. So say you want to pick a number, a random number between 0 and 100. I'm going to put RANDBETWEEN. Click OK. There it is. And what's the bottom number? Say 1. The top number, 100. You click OK, and you got 11. You can press, I'm pressing delete key right now, and it just keeps redoing it, and it's giving you a whole number between 1 and 100. See here, this function right here will give you a number between 0 and 100, but the wizard that I was just doing between 1 and 100. Let's say we want something totally different. Say we want between 50 and 70. Click OK, and there it is, 60. You can press delete, and you can copy this down. You can have a whole range of numbers. So these are all, see, between 50 and 70. So that's how the RANDBETWEEN function works. Okay, on to the replace function. The replace function will pretty much do what its name says. It's just going to replace part of a cell with whatever else you specify. So let's say we have this word here, Excel by Joe, and we want to replace part of this cell. So we're going to insert the function, put in replace. There it is. So we'll go through the wizard here. What's the old text here, which is Excel by Joe? What starting number of a part of this cell do you want to replace? So say we want to replace the L right here in Excel by Joe. So it's EXCEL. So that's the fifth number, the fifth character. How many characters do you want to replace? We can, if we wanted to replace 2, we can replace the L and the space. If we wanted to replace 4, it's the L, the space, the B, the Y. For this, we'll just do one number. We're just going to replace the L. And the new text, we can put a whole string of numbers or letters. We can just replace it with, say, 1. Say I just want to put a Z in there. Just something nice and simple. Click OK. And now I mean, this word doesn't make sense, but it's just to show you an example of how this is used. And there's the Z, replaces the L. And you can even replace it with 3 Z's. Click Enter. And there you go. And this is great for if you have like a large range of numbers, you can copy this down and it'll do all of them. Let's say here we've got this phone number. We want to replace, say, these middle 3 digits. And a simple way to do that will be with the replace function. Because say you have other phone numbers in here, and you want to go all the way down and replace all the middle digits with, say, 999. So you can insert the function, replace. So what's the old text? Here's the old text. What's the starting number? We're starting at the 5th character, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many characters do you want to replace? You want to replace all 3 of these. So we're going to put a 3. And what's the new text? We said we want to replace it with 999. We click OK. And there. Now we've got 716-999. And we can copy this right down and replace these middle 3 characters with the 999 also. And if you just look at the wizard, every part of that is separated by commas. So you don't even have to go through the wizard. You can just go in and type it. Type in A3, comma 5, which is the 5th character. 3 characters you want to replace, and with 999. The wizard's just good because it helps give you a guideline to help you remember what goes where. So that's it for the replace function. Okay, now it is the repeat function. And the repeat function, it's pretty descriptive. We'll just repeat the number of cells that you want. So the function actually is REPT. And we're going to insert the function. Say we want to repeat this 1, 2, 3 a couple times. We're going to type in the function, REPT. And all it's going to do is you pick the text. Here we're going to do a reference, cell A1, which is 1, 2, 3. And how many times do you want to repeat it? We want to repeat it 3 times. We click OK. And there, now we repeated it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Repeated it 3 times. You can even just type it in, REPT, and say you want the number 22. And repeat that 5 times. Click OK, and there it is. There should be 22, 22, 22, 22, and 22. So it repeated it 5 times. Put it in the cell for you, and that's just how the repeat function will do. Okay, we're going to look at another text function now. It's the write function, RIGHT. All it's going to do, it's just a text function which will pull cells from the right side of any cell in order to pull the different characters that you choose. So say we have this, and we want to pull, say, the rightmost 3 characters on this cell. We can insert the function write. And all it's going to do is, what's the text? Here's the text. And how many characters do you want to pull? We want to pull 3 characters. Click OK, so it pulls the word Joe, which is the 3 rightmost characters. You don't even have to use the wizard. You can just type it in, write. You can put this in, and say we want 8 characters. Now it's going to give you, going to include spaces, so it's just whatever characters. So street is 6 letters, the space and the N, and that's 8 spaces. And same thing works for numbers. You can insert the function write. We want this cell, and say we want 2 characters to the right. Click on OK, and it's 14, which is the 2 rightmost characters. So this is just a great function to pull different characters from a from a text. I mean, it relates to the left function, which pulls from the left side, and also the mid function, which will pull items right from the middle of it. So if you wanted to see those, you can go over those videos too. Thanks. Okay, now I want to round a number. So we're going to use the round function. And all it's going to do is simply, it's going to take your number and you get to choose how many decimal places and what spot do you want to do the rounding. So say we get this number here, 458.184. Say it's like $1 amount. So we want to round to, say, 2 decimal places. So we're going to insert a function, round, click OK, and you're going to say, what's the number? Here's the number, and what digit? So if we press a 2, it means it's going to do the 2 decimal places. We click OK, and that's what it just rounded to 2 decimal places. We're going to insert the round again. And here, let's say we just want to round to one decimal place. Click OK, and you'll see it rounded it up to 2. So if like the number following, like we're rounding to the first decimal place, if the number after it is a 5 or greater, it's going to round this up. Like it rounded this up from 0.18 to 0.2. If this was less than 4 or less, then it would leave this as 1. And you can do this more than just decimal places. You could do a round, and say you want just a whole number. You can press 0, and you get 458. And even if you don't want to do it at the decimal place part, you can do round here, and you can do, let's say, -1. So what -1 will do, it's going to round it to this number. Instead of the whole number, which would have been 0, it rounds it to -1, which is one number to the left of the whole number. So for 458 will become 460. So that's how the round function will work. All right, now we're going to go over the round down function. If you know the round function will round it either up or down depending on what the number is. But say you specifically want all your numbers rounded down, we use the round down function. So say we have the same number, 458.184. We're going to insert the function round down. And what's the number? There's your original number. And how many decimal places? Say we want to round it 1 decimal place. Click OK. And this becomes 458.1. If you would normally round this 0.18, if you're rounding it to the 1, would round up to a 2. But since we want round down, it's going to round everything down, no matter what the second decimal number is. And we can even just type it in, round down. And see, you can tell under here, Excel will give you the little wizard. So round down, it tells you what's the number and the number of digits. So here's the number and number of digits. Say we have 0. And 458.184 rounded down to the whole number just becomes 458. Okay, now we're going to look at ROUNDUP Function. If you've seen the round down video, I think you'll figure out what the round up video will do. All it's going to do is just going to take any number that you want and round up to the number of decimal places you choose. So we've got this number, 458.184. Say we want to round it up. So we're going to insert the function round up. Click OK, there it is. What's the number? Here's the number. How many decimal places? Say we want just to the whole decimal, to the whole number. Click, put a 0. So 458.184 to the whole rounded up becomes 459. We can type it in, round up, parentheses here, which is a 3, and say we want to the first decimal place, which is the 1, it rounds up to a 2. And you can even, you don't even have to use a reference. So round up, say 22.6, comma, say 0. You want to round that to the whole number. Press OK. And 22.6 rounded up to the whole number becomes 23. And that's what the roundup function will do. Okay, now we will be using the search function. The search function will search for a letter or a number within a cell and give you that starting point of where it is. So say we have this, Excel by Joe. We want to find where is the letter J. So we're going to insert the function. There it is, search. And what do you want to find? You want to find the J within the text. Right there. It's cell A1. And you can put a starting number if you want. If you don't, it'll just start right from the beginning of the word, which is this E in Excel. But if you wanted to start, say, at the third or fourth character, or whatever you needed for a certain reason, you could put that number in there. But I'm going to leave it blank. I'm going to click OK, and it's a 10. So it's basically saying, searching for the J in this word. Let's count the letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Space counts as 6. 7, 8. Another space is 9. And then the J is 10. So that's what it returns. Say we want to look for the E in Excel by Joe. I'm going to try it again. Search. What do you want to find? E. Within text here, we'll leave the starting number alone. We'll click on OK. And it's 1. So what it's going to do, it just starts from the left and it looks for an E. Even though there's 1, 2, 3 E's in this phrase, it just finds the first one. And the first one is in the first character, so it returns a 1. And the same thing will work for numbers too. You can insert the function search. Say we want to find the 3 within this phrase, which is just number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to click OK, and it's the 3. It comes up as the third character. Because if you look at your search, you're searching for a 3 within A3. If you're searching for a 4, it is the fourth character. If you're searching for a 6, it's not in there. And when you search for something that's not in there, it's going to give you the pound value error. And that's a quick overview on the search function. Okay, we are now going over the small function. The small function works sort of like the min function, if you've seen that, but you get to choose what smallest value you want to find. Say you want to find the third smallest value in a range of numbers, the small function will let you do that. So say we've got all these test scores here. We're going to use the small function. Say we want to find the third lowest test score. We're going to insert the function, small, click on OK. Now what's the array? Here's your array of numbers. And the K is just what smallest value do you want to find. So in this case we want to find the third smallest value. Click OK, and it's 67. So if we kind of do this manually, we're going to look, and it looks like 56 is the lowest and smallest number, then 59, then the third smallest number is 67, which is what we picked. Say we even want to just type this in. We could do small, parentheses, we're going to put the same range in here, and say we want to find the second smallest number. And the parentheses, click OK, and it's 59. So these are the same range of numbers. 56 is the smallest, 59 is the second smallest, and which is what we're looking at, which is why we have the 2 there. And this also works for dates too. So we can do small, put in our range of dates, say we want the third smallest date, press OK, and it's September 4th. So if we kind of look through here, we've got an April, which looks like the smallest date, then there's an August date, and then the third smallest date would be September 4th, which is what comes up. So for the small function, it just gives you a little more flexibility than the min function because you get to pick which smallest value you want to find. Thanks. All right, let's go over the substitute function. The substitute function will basically just substitute one part, one cell, or one part of the word in a cell with another part, which you specify. So let's go over these examples here. Let's say we have this, Excel by Joe, and we want to substitute the word Joe with something else, like the word Tommy. We're going to insert the function. I'm going to go with substitute. And what's the text? So the text is just the cell that we're going to change. The old text, here's where you get to type in, or you can use a reference to what the old text is. So in here, Excel by Joe, say we want to change the word Joe to, what's the new text? Say Tommy. And the instance, You can leave this blank. If you put this, this is just if there's multiple instances like of the word Joe or of the letter that you want. So we're going to just leave this blank, click OK, and now the result is Excel by Tommy. See, if you look at the function here, if you wrote it, it's just substitute what cell, comma, what you're changing, and what you're changing it to. As you can see it right here. Now let's say we've got this, Excel-Excel, and we want to change the E, say the second E only, to a capital Q. So we're going to insert the function, substitute. We're going to use this as the text. What's the old cell or word, E? What do you want to change it to? Capital Q. Now here's where this instance comes into play. We want to change the second E. See, if you look here, there's the first one, here's the second, there's a third, there's 4 of them. So Excel is saying if you don't put anything in here, it's going to change all of them, as you can see down here. See, it changed to Q, all the E's to Q's. If we want the second one, we put a 2 there, click OK, and now it's EXCQL. And see how it's substitute, here if you look at the formula, it's substitute the cell with E with Q, and we only want the second one, so that's how it did it. And we'll go one more example. You don't have to use a reference. You can use substitute, and see, we can just type the whole text in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say that's our text. And what do you want to substitute? I'm going to take the 3 and change it to a 6. Click OK, and there it is. See, 1, 2, this is where the 3 would have been. You see, I've got the formulas written right out here. It's the same as what we used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Replace the 3 with a 6, and it becomes 1, 2, 6, 4, 5. And it's what a substitute function will do. Alright, we're going to go over the Sumif function right now. Those are 2 functions pretty much combined into one. It's the if function and the sum function. The sum function just adds up numbers, and the if function pretty much allows you to specify a criteria. And if it meets that criteria, then it's going to do the sum function and add them up. Let's say we've got all these students here and their grades. Say we want to add up just Joe's grades. So there's 1, 2, 3 instances of Joe. We want to add these up. So to do that, we will use the Sumif function, which you have right here, Sumif, and the range. The range is where we're looking up the criteria. So like where are the student names? It's right here. The criteria is Joe. And the sum range is the grades. So that's column B. You want to make sure that these match, A2 to A8, B2 to B8, because what it's going to do is Excel is going to look in the range. It's going to find the criteria, which is Joe, and then it's going to go over one or to that column that you specify and pull the grade. But if this ended up being like B3 to B8, it can't go over one because it's not in the sum range, and it'll give you an error. It just won't add up right. So you want to make sure these row numbers match each other. Click OK, and it comes up to 196. And to write this out, all you do is Sumif, comma, first the range that you're looking for, then the criteria, and then comma, and then just what you want to sum up. And that's all it will do. All right, let's go over the sum function. The sum is probably one of the most used functions because it's what most people do is just add. All it's going to do is just add a group of numbers, and it's right on the main toolbar. So all we're going to do, well, I'll still show you the long way of going through insert the function. So we're going to insert a function, sum. All it's going to do is just add up the numbers. And when you put your cursor, sometimes Excel will automatically read what's above it. It reads these as numbers, so it puts it right in there. But if it doesn't, you can just highlight it, click OK, and what it's going to do is just 332. It adds up these 4 numbers. It just sums them up. But in addition, you could also, if you want to do multiple ranges, so you can insert a function. If you want a second range, you can do that. Click OK, and it's 589. So what it's doing, it's just summing up this and summing up this. And if you look, it's just that range, comma, E4, E2 to E4. That's all it is. And if you don't even have to use the insert a function. If you want to just type it in, sum. You can just type it in, sum, parentheses, comma, there's the other number, click OK, and there it is, 589. So sum is just one of the basic functions which everyone uses, and it's just nice and easy. Thanks. Okay, we are going to go over the Sumifs function, which works very similar to the Sumif function, which you can go over if you haven't seen that one yet. What it's going to do, it's combining a couple functions together. The sum function, which just adds up numbers, and the if function, which you give a criteria, and if it meets that criteria, it'll sum it up. But with having IFS just means you can put in multiple criterias, and it has to meet all those criteria in order for it to sum up. So we've got this, say these all these students here, what class they took, and grades. And say we want to sum up all of Joe's math scores. So like if we go down here, student, Joe, science, that's that one we want. Here's Joe, math, and then here's a Joe, math. So we really want to just sum up these two. To do that, we use the Sumifs function. So I'm going to insert function, Sumifs, click OK. So first, what's the range of what we want to sum? We want to sum up the grades, so we're going to put that here. The criteria range 1 is we want to look up the students. And what's the criteria? Joe. Criteria range 2, look up the class, and we want math. So we're going to click OK, and it's 118. What that does is just adds up 57 plus 61, because these are the only two that say Joe and math. If we look at the formula up here, it's Sumifs, first C2 to C10, this is your grades that you want to sum. Then A2 to A10, which are the students, then comma Joe, or B2 to B10, comma math, is the criteria. You can have a third one if you had more columns, which could be say D2 to D10, and then whatever this criteria is if you had another column of data. One thing you want to be sure, just like with Sumif, all these have to match. All the row numbers have to match. So it's rows from 2 to 10, here's from 2 to 10, here's from 2 to 10. If they don't, say you find a match here, however, it's not in one of the ranges, it's not going to pull it in, it's either going to give an error or add it up wrong. So you just want to make sure that all these numbers match, and then it'll go through, pull in both matches, and when it finds both matches, it's going to take the grade, which is the first criteria, and sum it up. Okay, we are going to go over a date function called today. The today function is just, it doesn't have any anything with it. All you're going to be doing is using the today function to pull today's date. That's all it is. So wherever you want today's date to go, equals today, then you have to put the open-ended brackets, the closed brackets, press OK, and it's January 5th. If you look at the function, all it says is equals today, and then the two parentheses. Then you can format this to look a different way if you wanted the year in there, or however you wanted it to look. And that's all the today function will do. Although you can perform like different operators on it. Like if you wanted to do, say, equals today plus 7, like for what day is it going to be in a week. You press OK, and it's January 12th. And this is the same thing, you could format it however you want. But this is just a simple function to give you what today's date is. Alright, we are going over the upper function. This is a text function which will basically just change all the letters in any cell that you want to uppercase. That's all it's going to do, but there are definitely some uses when you want all the letters to be uppercase. And so we have, say we have this address, 123 Main Street. Say we want to insert a function to make these all capital letters, we'd use the upper function. So we can insert upper, click OK, and all it's going to do is, what's the text? You can type in the text here, or you can do a reference. Click OK, and it's Main Street. It doesn't do anything with the numbers or any with the punctuation. All it does is takes all the small letters and makes them capitals. And if they're already small, or they're already a capital letter, it leaves it as capital. So we'll do that again. Or actually, we don't even have to. You can just type it in, upper, What's the text? This. Press OK. And there. Hi, my name is Joe. All in capital letters. Doesn't do anything with the punctuation. Leaves the capital letters alone. And you can even type something in. Say if we did upper, and say we just wanted to put hello. You can just type it in, click OK, and it's going to make this all capital letters. And that's all. That's what the upper function will do for you. The Vlookup function, or the vertical function, is just a function that will find an item in a larger table and then pull in a related field from that row. The best way to understand this is through an example. So I'm going to show you an example here. Say we have, we want to find the grades to a couple of these students. Here's the students, and we want to find their grade. We have this larger table of all the students, what class they took, and what grade they have. To find, we could say we want to find Tim's grade. We could go in here, we could search down, oh, there's Tim, you got a 93, and then we can manually put it in. The Vlookup function will do that for us. So if we put our cursor over in V2, we're going to insert a function, and we're going to put Vlookup. And here, we're going to fill out the wizard. First is the lookup array, lookup value. And that is going to be this field here, this A2, because we're going to look up Tim. We could just type in the word Tim, but then we want to copy this down to these other names, so it's better to put the reference in there. The table array is this table here of what we're looking in. So I'm going to highlight the whole column right from E to G instead of going like this, because if you did it like this, you would need to put the dollar signs in there to go from E1 to G14. Now this will still work for the first one, but when you copy this down, if you don't put the dollar signs in the next cell, this will become E2 to G15 and then E3 to G16, and you don't want that. So to save a step from having to put in the dollar signs, I just put the whole column in there. What you want to make sure, one thing to remember is the leftmost column of this table array has to contain the item that we're looking for. So in this case, we're looking for Tim. So this leftmost column has to contain the word Tim in here. Column index. This is where we get to pick which column we want to pull in. So in this table, student name is column 1, class is column 2, and grade is column 3. Since we want to pull in the grade, we're going to put a 3 in there because we want the third column in this table array. And range lookup. Here's the two different types of VLOOKUPs we can do. You could put false or true. False would mean that you want an exact match to exactly find the word Tim. So we're going to put false. I'm going to show an example with using true coming up, but first we'll just do an exact match. See, now we look, equals 93, we click OK. So now it's 93. What VLOOKUP does, it starts here at the top, it goes down, it finds Tim. There, 93. And it matches right here. Now if we copy this down, we could just drag it down from the lower right. Next one is Joe, 94. We're scrolling down, here's Joe. If you keep looking though, you see down here there's another Joe, there's 2 of them. VLOOKUP just takes the first one it finds, and then it counts over 1, 2, 3 columns. There, and we've got our 94. And the last one, Shelly, it's going to scroll down, go down, there. There's Shelly, it's a 95. And that's how the VLOOKUP, that's just a simple example of a VLOOKUP with an exact match. Now we're going to go over a second example of the VLOOKUP, but this one with not an exact match. So let's say we have these students here. Here's the students' names. This is their grade. And we want to know what their letter grade is. We're going to look in this table. This table is the letter grade table, which tells us like a score of 0 to 64 is an F, 65 to 69 is a D, and so on up to 90 to 100 is an A. For this to work though, you need this to be a sorted ascending, so from the lowest up to the highest. And then we can do a VLOOKUP, and then we don't have to have an exact match. Like we see this 88. It's not going to be an exact match in this column. There's no 88. So if we put true in the last part, which I'm going to show you in a second, it's going to try to find in this range. So we want to pull in the letter B because it's an 80 to 89. So let's do that. Do the VLOOKUP. So the lookup value is still, or is the grade. We want to look up the grade in the table. The table array is this whole table. We want to make sure the left column is what we're going to be looking in. The column index, we're going to put 3 because we want to pull 1, 2, 3, which is the letter grade. And the range lookup. Now, since we don't want an exact match, since we want to find that it'll still look for an exact match, but if it doesn't find an exact match, it'll find the closest one below it. So we're going to put true, or we could just leave it blank because it defaults to true. But I'll just put true for this example. Click OK, and see we get the result of a B. So what it's doing, it's looking for the number 88. It doesn't find it. So what's the next highest number below 88? Pretty much. 90 is above it, so that doesn't count. So the next highest number is an 80. So let's take 80, and this is what it finds. It goes to column 3, and it's a B. So if we copy this all the way down, there. A 67 would fall into here, this range, and it's a D. An 84 would also fall into the 80 to 89. That's a B. And a 94 would go into the 90 to 100, and that's an A. So that's an example of a not exact match for VLOOKUP.